Hey, I read the book I'll Teach You How to Be Rich by Ramit Sethi a while ago, and it really changed my attitude towards spending money. And that's why I wanted to make this video to share how my mindset changed after reading the book, and hopefully you can get some of the same benefits and realizations as I did as well. Conscious spending is not about cutting all expenses.
How much did you pay for this drone?
It's all about prioritizing to buy the things that you really love without feeling bad, and rather cutting down on the expenses that you don't really appreciate. That's what I'm going to talk about in this video. Have you really taken the time to consider if the price you pay for everything is worth the value it brings you? This really hit home for me and made me think a little, finally, because there are so many things that I used to buy only from habit, and I didn't think twice before I swiped that card. And what comes to mind is coffee. I used to always buy expensive coffees at cafes if I was going somewhere, just because that's what I normally did. And I just got used to the feeling of sitting on the bus with a cup of coffee. But after thinking a little bit about the concept of conscious spending, and tried to think if the price of the coffee was really worth the value it gave me, I quickly concluded that the main reason I got the coffee was habit and routine. And because of the relatively low price, it sneaks under the radar of what I perceive to be expensive. What I found out that I value just as much is simply waking up 5 minutes earlier and brewing my own coffee that I can bring on the train or bus. And here in Scandinavia, that could cost 1/50th of the price. So the value I get is the same, but the price is only a fraction of what I would pay if I just kept on going in the same lane without giving this a second thought. So I still buy coffee in cafes, but now I buy them if I really want them and really would appreciate it, and not because it's an old habit. Buying coffee is also a recurring subject in the book I'll Teach You How to Be Rich, with the point being buy as many lattes if you want, if that honestly gives you that much value. Focus instead on avoiding those costs that are not worth it. So this has really nothing to do with the object you buy, but rather how you value it and perceive it. What about yourself? Do you have a weekly or daily or monthly expense that it could be time to reevaluate? That's actually a pretty suitable phrase, habit reevaluation. Before I make any purchase, I make sure to fill out this questionnaire to determine if it's really worth spending my money on. Will this bring a relative happiness increase of 15% or more? Will this drop no more than 5% in monetary value in 1 year? Check. Will I give this service or product 20 dedicated thoughts of appreciation in the first 20? Oh, you know what? This doesn't hold up. There's a difference between being cheap and being a conscious spender. A cheap person only thinks about the cost, while a conscious spender thinks about the value and the cost. I have a friend that I used to think was cheap when I first started to get to know him. He never did like me and went to the convenience store because I needed something quick to eat or whatever. And at the bar, he always goes for the cheapest beer. If we're going somewhere, he always bikes or walks. He doesn't want to pay for the bus. But after learning about this concept, I understood that this man is not a cheap man. He's just a natural conscious spender. When I think of a cheap person, I think of someone who's a bit difficult to deal with if you're going to a restaurant or something, that they're really picky on where you go because it's too expensive. If they offer you a beer or something, they're really after you to get it back, and they might not be too keen on joining activities if they're too expensive. But this friend of mine, he gladly offers to pay. He's a generous person and he always joins everything. He's a really yes type of person. So after a while, I understood that he's just very aware and thoughtful of his choices. He gets the cheap beer because he doesn't really appreciate the taste of the fancy IPA or the newest Pilsner in the microbrewery. And cheap beer gets you tipsy too, so it does the job. That's a lot of alcohol examples. And this has made me realize that I don't really appreciate those fancy beers either. I've had a tendency of going to places that are a bit nicer and you pay a bit higher price. But after thinking about it, I honestly just prefer something simple. So this has been a conscious spending revelation for me as well. And as opposed to coffee, you don't buy one beer and hop on the train. You sit in the bar hour after hour, buying something potentially 3 times as expensive as the other option. So this has been a really simple shift, not making my bar visits any less fun or enjoyable. But now I can afford buying those ridiculously expensive tubs of Ben & Jerry's on the way home. That's a win. There is no simple way of just knowing if something is worth it or not. But I think getting started in thinking in this direction is going to make things a bit easier and come more natural eventually. And I feel so much better about, for example, not buying things because I consider this concept and do the right thing. And I also feel better about buying things because I know it's been through the conscious spending filter and it's approved. I'm not claiming to be to have mastered this concept at all, but it's for sure something I want to apply more in my life, both personal finance wise and also in other aspects. But I'll come back to that in another video, I think. Not this one, but this one is certainly also very mind-blowing and helpful, and it's gonna improve